Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Bar podcast. I'm your host, Denisa Tova, and today I have a very special guest, Jill Heitler Blomberg. She's a distinguished family and matrimonial law attorney, partner at law firm called Schoonmaker George, based in Connecticut. And Jill's impressive career spans over 2 decades, and her expertise in pretty complicated financial matters, custody disputes, earned her very significant recognition. But today, we are here to discover more about Jill beyond her legal title. Jill, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Denisa, for having me here.
So, Jill, we spoke a little bit, but this is really an opportunity for me to get to know you as well as our audience. So, you've had a pretty remarkable journey to the law. Could you start by sharing what was that like growing up in a special kind of a family, and how did that influence your career path to the law?
Yes, well, I grew up, my grandfather was a lawyer and a judge. And when I was in college, my mother became a judge. So I really grew up with the law. Um, and I think from a very, very young age, it was just something I knew that I was sort of destined to do. It was in the family.
That's interesting. So it was in the family, something you were destined to do. And I know there's a lot more there. Is that something that you knew you had to do given your family's dynamic? Did they tell you, Jill, this is what you absolutely must do? What was that like? How were these decisions made?
Nobody ever told me I had to be a lawyer or had to go to law school. I think it was just something that I became really passionate about early on. Um, and as a young woman, the jobs that I had, I started working at the Gap, but other than that, all the other jobs I had were law related. And so, starting in high school, through college, and through law school, worked in a variety of jobs, whether it was at the Manhattan DA's office or a law firm, legal aid society, various jobs in the law. And I think that really taught me that this was something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
That's pretty incredible. I mean, that is such an intense focus from such an earlier age. Was there? I'm just curious. Was there any part of you, the younger version of you, the very young version
I'm
of you,
still very
that
young,
sort of
Denise. I'm very
you're
young.
very young. I would say the much younger version of you, the teenage version of you. Um, was there part of you that sort of felt rebellious in any way?
No, I was definitely not a rebellious child at all. At all. I had an amazing rebellious sister, but other than that, I was not rebellious.
What were you into as a child?
I love sports. I played tennis in high school and I played tennis in college for 1 year before I transferred. Loved socializing, very, very family oriented, very close with my family. So we spent a lot of time together. Obviously, loved going out with friends. Um, but I grew up in Manhattan. So, and now I live in Connecticut. But it was definitely a very different life growing up in the city as opposed to growing up in the suburbs.
I can only imagine. I mean, your options were a little, maybe not limited. I mean, in terms of space, probably options in terms of entertainment, and there's plenty to do in a city, just a different lifestyle.
Yes, I look at my kids now and I see all the things that they got to do, as children and teenagers and now young adults. And it was just different. I mean, I had different opportunities than they had. And I think that they had different opportunities than I had.
So now you are your family law attorney. How do you deal with the emotional aspect, right? If it was only dealing with the financial issues, the parenting issues, but there's so many layers to you. How do you deal with that?
the stress or the sort of the day to day dealing with clients and adversaries,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah.
I would say, first of all, I take a deep breath and I try to have a lot of empathy, because even if I have heard the situation dozens and dozens of times, this is always somebody's first time. And so it's really
Mm.
important to have a lot of empathy. Um, I think that there are times when clients can get very emotional, and that can come out in various ways. It could be anger, even though it's not to be directed at me. Sometimes it can be just because they're stressed. It could be sadness and lots of tears, anxiety. Um, and so I've really tried to learn to take each client as an individual and focus on that client and what their needs are.
One of my favorite questions is, how do you kind of what we started to talk about is how do you sort of reset, right? So you don't bring this home. But being
Yeah.
that you come from a family of lawyers and judges, do you ever come home and want to talk cases or dynamics, even ask for advice?
Um, I don't really ask for advice. My husband's a lawyer too, so a lot of lawyers in the family. Um,
Lawyers.
so I don't typically ask for advice. If I have a very special thing, something I yesterday got a decision that we won, and the client was so happy. She was in tears on the phone, and that's the type of thing that I would share because it really invigorates me and makes me so happy. It's why I do what I do. Not necessarily just to win a case, but to help somebody through such a difficult time and to really change their life in a way that I know and they know they will be better.
This is such a tough role. What have you learned about yourself through the practice in the legal field? Obviously dealing with people, it is a constantly varying dynamic. Like you said, no case is the same. Um, if you look sort of your practice over the last 20 years or more, is there something that you realize, what, from the time I started, this is sort of what I had to grow through as an individual?
Yes, I would say that I initially, um, looking back, if I could look back at myself 25 years ago, initially practicing, I probably was judgmental. If somebody came in and did something that in my world wasn't the right thing to do, um, in my brain, I was a little judgy. And I think that has
We all
drastically
are.
changed. I think it's changed because I've realized that I didn't live in their shoes and I didn't live
Mm.
in their circumstances. And no matter what it is, um, I've had clients who have been physically abusive. I've had clients that are severe
Mm.
drug addicts or alcoholics and have caused turmoil in their family. I've had clients who have really done some difficult things in their family or caused difficult things to happen, and I feel that if I can help them not just through the divorce process, but to also get better within themselves, emotionally, physically, spiritually, I feel like I'm going to make a difference in their life. So trying to be less
That
judgy, I would say.
I can only imagine, right? It's almost like you have to keep your ego outside of the door and keep that in check. It must feel like I'm sure there are moments, even in when you're trying to be your best and stay completely neutral and removed, that you just want to go, come on, what are you thinking? you know, because they're wrapped up in emotions, and that usually comes from a fear of unknown, fear of losing control over the situation and whatever that represents to that human being. So that is not an easy territory to navigate, and you've been doing it for such a long time. That's very impressive.
Yeah, well, I've been practicing about a quarter of a century, and I've been with my firm, gosh, now 20, almost 24 years. So 25 years, I think, coming up. And I've worked
Mhm.
with the same. We're a family in my firm. We really are. So it's a really unique practice in that the lawyers and the paralegals and the staff, we have worked together for so long that we know how to finish each other's sentences, and we know what our strengths and weaknesses are, and how to really help the client in the best way that we can. Um,
How would your husband describe you?
He would say that I am always on the go. He would say I'm very bright. He would say I have a big heart. He would say I need to slow down. He would say I move too fast, and that I need to take more time to smell the roses. I mean, he wouldn't say it in those words necessarily, but I think he would say that. Um, I need to just slow down a little bit. Um, and he would say, I'm a wonderful mother and wife and caring, um, and hardworking. He would definitely say I'm very hardworking and determined. He would say, when you want something, you go after it, whatever it is. And so I think that if there's something that he wants and I don't get it for him or do it, that maybe he's like, I know you know how to do this. But yes,
Mm, that's why you are where you are. Going after it. I'm sure, you have to take some risks along the way. But, for this reset, what do you enjoy doing outside of the law when you're not working, I should say?
yes. Um, I love to be most importantly, I'd say I love to be with my family and friends. That's a number one. Spend time on the golf course, spend time going to
Mm.
dinners and Broadway shows and movies, socialize a lot with friends. Um, I work out. I have a trainer and I work out. I've always been into exercise. Um, I like to challenge myself there too. So many years ago, when my kids were young, they were doing karate, and so I took up karate. And actually, when I was 35, I'm not 35 anymore, but when I competed in a karate tournament, which was
Nice.
grappling, and grappling is like wrestling. So
Wow.
imagine you're wearing like an outfit, and I had a mouth guard. It was quite an
Wow.
experience. And now I'm trying hot yoga, which I've never done yoga in my life. So hot yoga is definitely a challenge, but I'm enjoying it.
Nice.
Um, I like to read. I love movies. I watch a lot of movies. Um, so that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it seems like even on a personal side, you constantly keep that plate full. Like you're a doer. You probably wouldn't know what to do with yourself if you if you couldn't pick up a book, if you couldn't watch a movie, if you couldn't exercise. I mean, well, but I am just like that. so so I get it. Let's go back to your heart. There is a charity that is near and dear to your heart. Tell me about that.
Yes. It's called Casa Verde, Home of Hope, and it stands for greenhouse. And it is a home in Medellin, Colombia, a home that a gentleman named Jose Arias founded about 25 years ago. And long story short, he was a driver for my father in law. I would drive him back and forth to the airport, and they became friends. And he had mentioned that he has a home that he takes children off the street and cares for them. He had somebody in the house. And my husband, who by trade was a corporate lawyer, got introduced to him through my father in law. This is again 25 years ago, and said, you have to make this a charity. You can't just do this on your own. We did, he did. And, we've been down to the house to visit the children, and it is every dollar that is raised for Casa Verde goes directly to the children. So there's no cost whatsoever. And you look at these young men and women who we met some of them when they were 5, 6, 7 years old, and now they've graduated. They are working. They are really uh, have a life ahead of them, and it's all because of Jose Arias. So it's really a special place.
What a great man. Wow. Amazing tribute. That is wonderful. We will definitely post a link to the charity and any information that you wish to share.
Thank you.
Wow. And then finally, Jill, because I mean, there's just so much to you. We can talk forever. But on a final note, what advice would you give to incoming lawyers?
I would say, first of all, find, if you can, a great mentor. I think that I was so blessed. When I started my practice, I started at a firm which was then called Tenzer Greenblatt. It's now Blank Rome. And Norman Heller, who is a amazing lawyer and still practicing. We actually have cases with each other to this day. He really was an incredible mentor to me. And then when I moved to my current firm, I was a second year associate, and Cindy George and Sam Schoonmaker really took me under their wing and taught me everything. So I think that's really important. Work hard. Nobody gets good at something unless you put in the time and the effort. I mean, it sounds simple, but you really have to put the hours in and ask a lot of questions. Whatever your trade, whatever your practice, and whatever type of law, whatever form, if you're in a law firm or you're in public interest, whatever it is, ask questions. Um, and really try just to be the best at what you're doing and just keep learning, because there's always something to learn. A day doesn't go by where I don't learn something and I say, wow, I didn't know that. And that's something really special about our practice.
It most certainly is. As I'm interviewing practitioners, there's a common denominator in that advice is it is not a job. And it is a career. It becomes part of you, which is really so easy to talk about what you do because it goes beyond the 8 to 5. It's sort of ingrained in you because you're dealing with human lives and children, and so you're right. It's there's constantly something new to learn, and in the process you learn and you grow actually as a human being along with that. So well, Jill, thank you so much for being here with us. Your journey in law and life is really inspiring. It's a testament to a power of resilience, adaptability, I should say, and passion. Oh, and we didn't even talk about your passion for fashion. I think you said that would have been your other career, right? If
It
you didn't
definitely
practice
would
law.
have. I love fashion. I'm sort of known for, I don't own flats other than sneakers or maybe
Wow.
flip-flops. I love heels. I love fashion. It is definitely, if I was not a lawyer, um, what you asked me earlier, what I like to do. One of the other things I like
Yeah.
to do is go shopping for others at designer consignment shops. Whether you are a friend, a family member, or I even have a friend who has a daughter who's 8, and I go to the children's consignment shops and I shop for her. So it's just something I love to do.
That
I
is
like
so
getting
much
a good deal.
fun. Yeah, that's important part of it. You can look good. You don't have to
Yes,
break a bank.
exactly,
That is awesome.
exactly.
Wow, so much fun. So much fun to have you. Well, thank you so much. We will definitely have you
Thank you,
back.
Denisa.
And for our viewers and listeners, who like to learn actually more about Jill Blomberg and how to get a hold of her, you can click on her bio link below. And do not forget to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, Beyond the Bar Podcast. And until next week, stay curious and inspired.